I grew up in a small town in Oregon, where everyone knew exactly how many cars my family owned. But no one really understood what my father had sacrificed to build the real estate company he left behind. Ever since he passed, that legacy has been the one thing I swore to protect at all costs. Not for the money, but for pride. They called me the kid born with a silver spoon. What they didn't know was that I got up at 5 a.m. every morning to review project reports and sometimes worked past midnight in a windowless room at the Portland headquarters. I wasn't reckless. I didn't party. I lived like the trust fund my father set up for me could vanish the moment I let my guard down. College friends? They came and went like wind through a cracked window. Everyone wanted to borrow money. Everyone hoped to score an invite to my Crater Lake villa on the weekends. But the moment I stopped pulling out my wallet, they disappeared without a goodbye. I stopped trusting anyone but myself. Then, when I was 31, I met her. Kylie was the kind of person you wouldn't notice in a crowded room, until she laughed. It wasn't polished or charming on purpose. It was real enough to make you think, I want to know more about her. I met her at a fundraiser for a small charity in Bend. She was standing near the table, debating fiercely with some guy about renewable energy, a glass of wine in hand that she barely sipped. I approached her out of curiosity. Nobody there knew who I was. No one blinked at the name Asher Whitlock printed on the cheap tag pinned to my jacket. I introduced myself with a simple handshake. Kylie smiled. No hesitation, no familiar flicker of calculation I was used to seeing when people recognized my last name. We talked the entire evening. She was a software engineer, had been on her own since 18, once worked 3 jobs at a time to pay for college. When I asked about places she wanted to visit, she didn't list fancy islands or luxury resorts. She talked about a seal sanctuary in Alaska she'd dreamed of visiting since she was a child. Our first date? A small burger joint next to the bus depot. I wasn't testing her. I just wanted to know if I could laugh like a regular guy, eat fries dipped in ketchup without worrying about image. Kylie made me feel like I didn't have to be the Whitlock heir every time I opened my mouth. A month later, I brought her home to meet my mother, and what surprised me most was how unshaken she was. Not a single gasp at the elevator in our sprawling estate, no phony compliments or rehearsed admiration. She simply smiled, brought a jar of homemade walnut cookies and a bottle of Pinot Noir from a local shop. My mother was so moved she nearly cried. The months that followed were the calmest of my life. I truly believed I had found someone who saw past the money and into the man I really was. I didn't know it was all just a flawless disguise. I didn't expect that behind that smile was a plan long in the making. We got married on a June afternoon, in a lavender-filled garden in the Willamette Valley. No fireworks, no overpriced champagne, just close family and a few of Kylie's friends. My mother handed her a wedding ring that belonged to my great-grandmother. Something I never thought I'd give to anyone outside of a dream. I didn't hide that Kylie was the first woman I ever brought home. My mom understood. She loved Kylie like her own daughter from the very start. I once overheard her calling Kylie the light after all the loss this family has endured. I believed every word. After the wedding, Kylie kept her job at a tech company in Eugene. She insisted on it, turning down my offer to start her own business. I don't need to be given anything, she told me, eyes locked on mine. Just don't stop me from following my own path. I agreed. Because I loved her, I believed everything she did was for our future. Exactly 1 year after our wedding, during a quiet anniversary dinner at our family's cabin on Pilot Butte, my mother did something I didn't see coming. She announced Kylie would be added to the family trust. I froze for a few seconds. Kylie? She simply smiled, not surprised. I used to think it was humility. Now I know it was just one note in a song she'd been composing all along. Rob Dalton, the man my father trusted to manage the trust's legal documents, was a seasoned accountant who had worked with us for almost 15 years. My mother chose him to oversee the legal framework for Kylie's inclusion in the trust. Rob was married to Natalie, a sharp but fair attorney. They had a 5-year-old daughter. Outwardly, Rob was the kind of man no one would suspect. Always punctual. Always polished. As for Kylie, she acted like Rob barely existed. I was blind. For 3 years, I saw no signs, no late-night texts, no mysterious disappearances, nothing. I remember one time, Kylie went on a 3-day work trip to Boise while I was hospitalized with a fever. She sent check-in texts, even FaceTimed me before bed. She played the part of a devoted wife perfectly. At parties, Kylie would often linger at the far end of the room. I thought she was just independent, not clingy. Rob? He always nodded politely, respectful, unremarkable. Who would have guessed those two were regularly vanishing for private meetings? No one could confirm. Once, after a shareholder briefing, I stepped out onto the terrace and saw them standing close under a maple tree, Kylie's laugh floating in the air like glass bells. Rob was fiddling with something on her phone. When I approached, they quickly stepped apart. Kylie smiled and said, "Rob was just showing me some funny pictures of his daughter." I believed them. Until one day Natalie, Rob's wife, sent me a letter. Inside was just one sentence. "You should know who's sleeping with who." Attached was a copy of the trust account statement showing multiple suspicious withdrawals, approved by Rob. The recipient account was under the initials KL. I stared at that line for hours. Kylie Lana Whitlock. Not every betrayal comes with blood. Some are silent as needles pressed to the spine, cold, calculated, and more brutal than any confession. I haven't confronted Kylie yet, not yet. I need to know how many more masks she's still wearing before I finally meet the real woman behind the smile, who once held my hand in a field of lavender. My father died on a winter morning, Portland blanketed in snow. My mother lasted 6 more months. Her heart stopped on a June afternoon, the anniversary of his death. Kylie stood by me at both funerals. No tears. No firm grip of support. Just elegant black outfits, short speeches, and a quiet exit after the guests had gone. I told myself everyone grieves differently, but cracks had started to form. The following weeks were a blur of contracts, asset transfers, and endless legal steps. Kylie was barely present. She claimed to be busy. Seattle, then Salt Lake, then Dallas. Every time I asked, she'd shrug. "I have to work. You wouldn't want me just sitting home crying, right?" I didn't argue. I didn't have the strength. I only thought about how to keep the company intact, how to honor my parents' legacy, and how to keep Kylie from slipping through my fingers. One weekday evening, I left work early and stopped by the flower shop on 12th Street. I picked up a bouquet of white tulips, my mother's favorite, and one Kylie had once said made her feel calm. I got home around 6 p.m. The house was strangely silent. I called out her name but only heard the soft hum of the refrigerator. When I stepped into the living room, I saw 2 suitcases by the door. Then I saw Rob, sitting on the couch, wearing a leather jacket and sunglasses, indoors like some cheap con man. And then Kylie walked out of the bedroom. Her hair was neatly tied back, lips painted wine red, and her eyes completely unfazed. "Oh, you're home earlier than I thought," she said, resting one hand on the suitcase. I stood frozen. My gaze shifted from Rob to her, then down to the bouquet of tulips in my hand. "You're going somewhere with Rob?" She let out a soft laugh, light as air. "Yeah, we fly out tomorrow morning. Italy. Amalfi. I booked a little villa by the coast. Stone tub, ocean view. Sounds romantic, right?" I don't remember what I said, maybe nothing at all. Rob stood up, shrugged like he was waiting for an Uber, while Kylie pulled a boarding pass from her purse and held it up like some kind of victory medal. "Don't worry, Rob's almost finalized his divorce, and I've filed too. My attorney will send the papers in a few days. Oh, and you know what? I'm entitled to part of the trust fund, right? Your mom said so once." I gripped the bouquet so tight, petals dropped to the floor. "What exactly do you think you're getting from that fund?" I asked, voice tight like a blade stuck in my throat. She walked over, leaned in, kissed me on the cheek, soft like she was saying goodbye to a coworker, and stepped back. I've thought this through. I'm not some nobody. I have a job, credentials. I was the perfect wife in your mom's eyes. And you? You never had time for me. Rob's different. She turned to him, took his hand, then gave me one final look. I hope you get through this soon. But for now, goodbye, Asher. They walked out. The door shut behind them, leaving only the sound of suitcase wheels scraping across the stone porch. I stood there, alone, the tulips drooping in my hand like they knew they'd just been betrayed. I don't know how long I sat on that floor, but I remember every detail. The warm yellow glow from the ceiling light, the ticking clock echoing like a metronome of despair, and the crushing weight in my chest like a boulder dropped straight through me. Someday, I thought, I'll tell someone about this moment. Not to reopen the wound, but to say this: the moment you think you've lost everything is exactly when clarity begins. Clarity to see what's real, and what was nothing more than a carefully painted mask. 3 days after Kylie walked out of my life, Friday afternoon was slipping into dusk, the sky brushed in soft orange. I sat motionless in the living room, my phone buzzing endlessly with calls I didn't want to answer. The world had paused, until the doorbell snapped me out of it. At first I ignored it, hoping whoever it was would give up. But the ringing grew more persistent, more determined. I eventually dragged myself to the door. Outside stood a blonde woman with her arms crossed, eyes sharp as steel. She wore a charcoal gray trench coat and had the air of an attorney or an investigator. She scanned me from head to toe before speaking in a cold, clear voice. "I'm Lauren, Rob Dalton's wife. We need to talk. Now." I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked straight into the living room, eyes sweeping across the mess as if assessing the mental state behind every scattered object. She sat on the couch across from me, calmly opened her bag, and placed a file folder on the glass table. "I'll get to the point," Lauren said firmly. "My husband is sleeping with Kylie, but the affair isn't what concerns me most." "You're not upset he cheated on you?" I asked, thrown by her composure. She gave a dry smile. "I'm more concerned about something worse. The two of them have been siphoning money from your family trust, and not just a little, Asher." It felt like a second knife to the chest. My lungs clenched. "What are you talking about?" Lauren opened the file and slid a stack of bank statements toward me. Lines of transactions, one after another. I stared at the pages, heart pounding, trying to absorb what I was seeing. "They started small," she explained, "but it escalated quickly. Rob thought you wouldn't notice, since Kylie had shared access. Starting in March, the amounts got bolder. Just last week, they wired a large chunk to buy a luxury apartment in Italy." My fists clenched, face burning with rage and humiliation. I never imagined Kylie capable of this level of deceit. "How do you know all this?" I asked, voice shaking. Lauren gave a bitter smile. "I'm a financial analyst. You think I'd let my husband cheat without digging? I've been tracking him for months. I've got everything." I leaned back in the chair, eyes unfocused. Kylie had been using me for years, and I never saw it. Lauren met my gaze, her tone resolute. "You're allowed to feel hurt, but now isn't the time to fall apart. I need you to stay sharp, work with me. We're taking them down." I nodded slowly, realizing she was right. This wasn't the time to collapse. "What do you need me to do?" "Come with me to meet the attorney," Lauren said. "With everything we've collected, this is a clear-cut criminal case. I want Rob and Kylie held accountable. I'll never forgive people who abuse someone's trust for their own gain." She stood, picked up her bag and locked eyes with me, full of fire and purpose. I'd never met anyone as fierce as her. "I've got an appointment with the best lawyer in the city tomorrow morning. You ready?" I exhaled slowly, rose to my feet, and extended my hand. "I'm ready." Lauren shook it firmly. For the first time since Kylie walked out, I didn't feel alone. When she left, I sat back down and examined every page she'd handed me. The more I read, those forged signatures, Bold transactions, blatant lies. The colder my heart grew. That night, I didn't sleep. I combed through every email, every old message from Kylie. Each memory, every moment I once thought was love, crumbled under the weight of brutal truth. She was never who I thought she was. Just a well-crafted illusion driven by greed. But I wasn't going to let this slide. Kylie and Rob thought they were clever, thought they had me fooled. They were wrong. With Lauren by my side, we were going to drag the truth into the light. When the plane landed at Florence International Airport, Kylie had no idea that this belated honeymoon with Rob would be the last moment of complete freedom they'd ever have. They had spent 10 days roaming along the Amalfi Coast, swiping credit cards tied to a sub-account from the trust fund. Pictures of yachts, seafood dinners by the sea, cocktails on a 5-star hotel balcony. Kylie posted them carefully on social media, like sweet little taunts sent my way. I saw every post. Not because I cared, because I needed evidence. The more footprints they left behind, the easier it was to drag them to the end of the line. When Kylie tried to swipe her card at a hotel near the Florence airport to pay for their final night, the screen blinked a cold message. Transaction declined. Account temporarily suspended. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, turning to Rob. He pulled out his own card, tried again. Same result. The calm cracked. Rob immediately called the bank, while Kylie stood beside him, her face draining of color. The voice on the other end explained briefly. The account had been frozen at the request of the trust's legal representative. The beneficiary list was temporarily invalid due to suspected financial fraud. Kylie froze. She couldn't even speak. Just stared at Rob, then quickly pulled out her phone and called me. The call came as I was walking out of a meeting with Lauren and our lawyer. I picked up. Kylie didn't say hello or sugarcoat anything. She barked. "Asher, what are you doing? Why is my account locked? What happened to the trust?" Rob said. I cut her off. "You should ask your lawyer. Or better yet, ask Lauren. She filed the criminal complaint. With full documentation of your unauthorized withdrawals." There was silence for a few seconds. The airport wind hissed through the phone. Then she asked, her voice softer. "Asher, you can't do this to me. I'm your wife." "No, you were my wife," I replied, my tone heavier. "But what you did erased everything you used to be." "Can we talk in person?" she pleaded. I just want to understand." "Up to you, but know this. It's not a reconciliation." I hung up. The next afternoon, Kylie showed up outside the company headquarters in Portland. I was just stepping out of the lobby when I saw her, waiting across the street. No makeup, panic in her eyes. She walked toward me quickly, blocking my path. "Asher, please, just give me 5 minutes." I nodded and led her to a bench in a nearby park. "You can't let it end like this," Kylie began, struggling to stay composed. "I'm not a bad person. I wanted to feel truly loved for once. Rob made me feel alive. You were always buried in work. So because I didn't fly you to Italy often enough, you and your boyfriend decided to steal my parents' money," I said, locking eyes with her, each word sharp as steel. "I didn't take anything I wasn't entitled to," she shot back, raising her voice. "I was a beneficiary. I had a right." I chuckled and shook my head. "Not anymore. The court accepted our request to remove your rights due to fraud and abuse of trust. Every trail leads back to you and Rob." She was speechless, frozen for a moment, then spoke like she was making a final bet. "You still love me. I know you do. You can't let me fall like this." "You brought yourself down, Kylie," I said, standing up slowly. "I'm just cleaning up the wreckage." She grabbed my hand, voice nearly begging. "Please, don't leave me. I have nothing left but you." I pulled her hand away, eyes cold as ice. "No, Kylie, you have nothing because you chose it that way. And I have nothing left to give." I turned and walked away. Behind me I could hear her sobbing, calling my name in vain. But I didn't stop, not once. Some people never learn the value of forgiveness because they've never known remorse. For Kylie, everything was just a game. But this time, she lost everything. 3 days after that park encounter, Kylie called again, Her voice held no arrogance, no false calm. Asher, she hesitated. I know I messed up, but please, give me one night, just to talk, one last time. I paused, then answered. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, the old house. Right after, I texted Lauren. She wants to meet, alone. Thoughts? Lauren replied with one word. Good. The next evening, Kylie arrived on the dot. She wore a plain white dress, no makeup, hair down naturally. When the door opened, she tried to smile, but even that looked uncertain. She stepped inside, scanning the room. No sign of Lauren, no one else. I want to hear what you have to say, I said, pouring a glass of water and sitting across from the dining table. Kylie set down her purse and slowly walked toward me. Her eyes were wet, her voice soft. Asher, I'm truly sorry. I didn't respond, just looked at her like someone watching an old play they already knew the ending to. I didn't even know what I was thinking when it all started, she continued, placing a hand on her chest. I felt ignored. You were always buried in work, and I felt like a shadow in my own home. So because you felt lonely, you slept with Rob? She lowered her head, then suddenly burst into tears. It didn't start that way, I swear. I needed someone, anyone, who would just listen. Rob always knew how to make me feel important. My tone didn't change. And the money? The unauthorized transfers from the trust? That was because you needed to be heard too? She looked up, a flicker of anger flashing in her eyes before she could hide it. I was a beneficiary too, Asher. I didn't take anything I wasn't named on. I just helped Rob manage the finances. Did you think I got my share by doing nothing? I smirked. There it is. Finally some honesty. Kylie seemed to realize she'd said too much. She stepped back and tried to correct herself. I mean, that's not how I meant it. I was just helping Rob, or, no, not helping. I was manipulated. He pulled me into it. I was being used. A small click sounded from the next room. She jumped and turned. The door opened. Lauren stepped out, holding a small recording device in her hand. Hi, Kylie, she said calmly like a breeze. I'd say you gave a decent performance tonight. Too bad the audience isn't naive anymore. Kylie went pale. You heard everything? Recorded it all, Lauren replied, raising the device. Every word you just confessed, from colluding with Rob to stealing from the trust, is right here. Kylie looked at me like she was pleading, as if one soft glance from me could make all of it disappear. Asher, you can't do this to me. You loved me. Don't you remember? I stood up, my expression cold as frost on glass. I loved someone who never existed. You're just a disguise, pretending to be a person. I've lost everything. Kylie backed away, shaking. The account's frozen, Rob's gone. You're destroying me. Lauren gave a faint smile. No, Kylie, you did that to yourself. Suddenly, Kylie screamed. She ruined my life. She's jealous of me. Rob left her because I'm smarter, sexier. I deserve a better life. Lauren looked at me, disgust barely hidden. I think we've heard enough, Asher. I nodded. You can send the recording to the attorney. Kylie collapsed into a chair, her face twisted in fury and desperation. I had it all, she whispered. I was so close, just a little more. I turned and walked away. What I left behind wasn't my ex-wife. It was a soul rotting from its own greed. The door closed behind me. Lauren, still holding the recorder, said softly from behind, She thinks this is the end, but the game's only just begun. The recording of my conversation with Kylie, witnessed by Lauren, was sent out the following Monday morning. Lauren's and my attorney compiled a full report, detailing the unauthorized withdrawals, recipient accounts, and transaction dates. The file was sent to the board of directors at Kylie's company, along with a formal letter urging a review of her ethical conduct. Less than 48 hours later, Kylie received an email placing her on administrative leave. 3 days after that, she was officially terminated. News spread like wildfire. Her company had been finalizing a major financial partnership with a firm in Austin. But once word got out that a senior data executive had been implicated in misappropriating funds from a private trust, the deal was pulled immediately. The board didn't hesitate. Kylie's system access was revoked and her files were frozen. In their public statement, the company vaguely mentioned a mid-level employee who violated core integrity policies. No names. But everyone internally knew exactly who. Lauren texted me a single word, one, meaning one down. The second robe didn't lose his job quietly like Kylie. After the scandal broke, the largest client of Rob's accounting firm demanded a full audit of all contracts he'd signed over the past 2 years. When they found that he had approved budgets connected to the Whitlock Trust, the company collapsed under the weight of liability. The board had no choice. Rob was fired during an emergency meeting on Thursday morning. An internal memo went out instructing employees not to speak to the media, but leaks happened anyway, especially after a financial blogger published a post titled, "From CFO to Con Artist, The Fall of Rob Dalton." Lauren texted me again, too. I stopped keeping tabs on Kylie, but I knew she wasn't handling the fallout well. Her accounts frozen, her reputation gone, friends disappeared. As for Rob, Lauren told me he was working at a small nightclub near the Columbia River, mopping floors and cleaning up trash after shows. The man who once walked in tailored suits now wore old t-shirts and stooped to pick up empty plastic cups, sticky with spilled beer. And it got worse. A group of investors, who had lent Rob money for a failed real estate project, found him. Lauren got a video from someone she knew, Rob being slapped repeatedly in a parking lot, blood pouring from his nose, while someone screamed, "Where's the money? I gave you 30 days, you piece of trash." Even with everything, my chest tightened watching that video. But Lauren just shrugged. Don't let pity ruin justice. She was right. Rob had called Lauren more than 20 times in 2 weeks. All of them were blocked. He switched to texting, begging, apologizing. He even sent a voice recording by email. "Lauren, I've lost everything. I know I was wrong, but please give me another chance. I'll start over. For Emily." Lauren just scoffed when she listened. "I used to be his wife, Asher. I once tried to save him, to protect our family. But someone like Rob doesn't value anything, not even his own daughter." I didn't respond. I knew what she was carrying wasn't just betrayal. It was the burden of being a single mother in the wreckage Rob left behind. While Rob was being dragged through the mud, Kylie was knocking on the doors of small startups, trying to land some temporary gig. But the news had spread further than she expected. No one wanted to hire someone accused of embezzlement and serious ethical misconduct. The two people who once tried to scheme their way into taking over my life were now picking through the rubble of the disaster they'd created for themselves. Lauren sent me a final message that night, "Your turn, court." I replied with just one line, "I'll be there." The game wasn't over, but the two key pieces had revealed their hands. Now all that remained was waiting for the checkmate to echo through the courtroom. That night, Lauren called me close to 10 p.m. Her voice wasn't calm like usual. It was trembling, filled with both anger and fear. "Asher, he's at my front door, drunk, yelling. Emily's hiding in her room. I can't let her see this again." I shot up from the couch, grabbing my car keys. "Lock everything. I'm on my way." When I arrived, Rob was slumped on the front steps, head resting on his knees. His shirt was wrinkled, and the stench of alcohol hung thick in the air. He looked up the moment he saw me, eyes glassy. "You really came. I knew you would. You're the hero, right?" he slurred, trying to stand but stumbling toward the fence. Lauren stepped out, phone in hand, ready to call the cops. "I warned you, Rob," she said, her voice ice cold. "Next time you show up here, I'll file for a restraining order." Rob staggered to his feet, tried to say something, but Lauren didn't wait another second. She slammed the door shut, leaving me to deal with him. I pulled him away from the gate, dragged him across the street to a bench in the park. "Go home, Rob, there's nothing for you here." He gave a bitter laugh and lowered his head again. I didn't say anything more. 10 minutes later, the cab I'd called pulled up and took him away in silence. Inside the house, Emily was curled up on the couch, clutching her teddy bear. Her eyes were wide with fear, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. I knelt beside her. "I'm here, sweetheart. Everything's okay now. No one's going to hurt your mom." She looked at me, then asked in a small, shaky voice, "Did you make my dad leave?" I nodded. "He's gone. You're safe here now." She threw her arms around my neck, still crying. Lauren stood in the doorway, gripping the frame, her lips tight, trying to hold in the storm. From that night on, I came by Lauren's house more often, not just to help with legal matters, but to help keep Emily's world steady. We reorganized the kitchen, rebuilt the backyard into a play area. I strung lights along the patio. Lauren set up a little bookshelf filled with old fairy tales. Every night I read stories to Emily before bed. Books like Charlotte's Web and The Secret Garden slowly brought her smile back. One evening, out of the blue, Emily asked, "Uncle Asher, will you stay the night?" I looked over at Lauren. She nodded softly. "You want me to stay?" I asked. "I'm scared my dad will come back," she whispered. "But when you're here, I'm not scared." I gently brushed her hair. "I'm not going anywhere. No one's going to make you cry again." The next month passed like a light drizzle. No more lawsuits, no more threats from Rob, no more calls begging for another chance. Every weekend morning, Lauren and I took Emily to the local farmer's market. She loved darting between fruit stands, picking the reddest strawberries, then proudly showing them off like a little warrior. One time, while I was laughing with Emily, I caught Lauren watching me. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't sentimental. It was the look of someone exhausted. Grateful? Someone else was helping carry the weight for once. I understood, and I stood silently beside her. One night, after Emily had fallen fast asleep, Lauren poured 2 glasses of white wine, handed me one, and sat on the back porch. No one said a word for several minutes, just the soft hum of crickets and moonlight glimmering across the wooden table. Finally, she said, "I don't even know how to thank you, Asher." "Don't thank me," I replied, eyes drifting toward the room where Emily was sleeping. "I think being with you two has healed me more than I've done anything for you." Lauren smiled gently. "Some pain can only be healed by genuine kindness. No judgment, no expectations." I clinked my glass with hers, feeling a lightness in my chest. No promises. No pretense. Just 2 people who had walked through hell, now sitting together under a kind moon, trying to live decently. One more day at a time. That morning, Portland was cloaked in gray mist. No rain, but cold enough to make your skin shiver. I stood outside the Multnomah County Courthouse beside Lauren. We said nothing as we waited for our names to be called. The first hearing. After months of gathering documents, compiling evidence, everything we had fought to preserve and expose was finally entering the justice system. When the courtroom doors opened, I saw Kylie and Rob sitting across from us, worn out, pale, hollow-eyed. They wore wrinkled business clothes, no longer resembling the power-hungry pair who once dreamed of seizing my family's legacy. The judge was a man in his 60s, composed with a calm, commanding voice. From the very start, he made it clear this was a preliminary hearing for charges including financial misconduct, document forgery, and fraudulent exploitation of a private trust. Lauren's attorney led with the recording, Kylie admitting she helped Rob siphon funds. Then my lawyer laid out a chain of transaction records, withdrawals matching the exact times Kylie and Rob were supposedly on work trips, confirmations from the bank, and most importantly, the internal financial logs Lauren had pulled during her time at the company. When they were done, the room fell into silence. No counter-arguments. Not a single word from the defense could disprove what was displayed on the screen. Rob stared at the floor. Kylie clutched her sleeve, trying to stay composed, but I saw her nails digging into her own skin. The judge looked up and tapped the gavel. "The evidence is admitted. The trial will resume next month to determine damages and possible criminal liability. In the meantime, the defendants are barred from accessing any assets linked to the trust and may not leave the state of Oregon. Immediately afterward, in a separate custody hearing, Lauren's attorney presented the emotional trauma Emily endured when Rob tried to break into their home drunk. The court played security footage, Rob yelling at the door, pounding on the glass, and Emily sobbing inside. Lauren didn't cry, but her voice trembled with fury. I don't deny that he's her biological father, but no one has the right to traumatize a child just because they can't face their own failures. Rob said nothing. His attorney requested a delay on visitation rights, citing the defendant's need for psychological treatment and financial stability. The judge agreed to suspend all contact with Emily until a certified child psychologist could evaluate the situation. I watched Rob lower his head, not just from shame but from realizing that he had lost everything. Even the right to be called a father. After the hearing, Lauren and I didn't say much. She just squeezed my hand tightly as we stepped onto the courthouse steps, like all the tension from these past months had finally compressed into one single grip. On the way home, Lauren rolled the window down, the wind tossing her hair wildly. I don't want anything but peace for Emily, she said, eyes fixed on the road ahead. As for them, I don't care if they suffer. I only need them to stop. I nodded. They already ended their own game. That night, Emily came running out of her room to greet me like always, wrapping her arms around my legs and whispering, "Today my teacher said to draw our family. I drew 3 people. Mom, me, and Uncle Asher." I stood frozen for a second, my heart stalling. Then I knelt beside her. "Where's the drawing now?" "On my nightstand," she grinned. "I drew you wearing a white shirt, like the day you took me out for waffles." I chuckled and looked toward the kitchen. Lauren stood at the counter, eyes slightly red but smiling. The legal war wasn't over, but the things that truly mattered seemed finally settled. They might lose their freedom and reputation, but Lauren and I, somehow, had found something neither of us ever planned for. A peaceful home. A life where no one had to bow their head to past pain. Life can fall apart in the moment you trust the wrong people. But from that collapse, you'll clearly see who's really willing to stay. Asher lost the woman he thought was his destiny, but in return, he found peace with a strong woman and a child who needed shelter. Justice doesn't always come from the courtroom. It comes from the way we rise after betrayal. Sometimes, happiness isn't found in what we hold on to, but in what we choose to let go. What do you think of Asher's choices and how he overcame the pain? Would you have done anything differently in his shoes? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories just like this one.